Nigun.
Welcome everyone, wherever you are. We are so glad that you have decided to join us this evening. We are praying this evening, as we always do, out of Mishkan Tefillah. If you do not have a copy handy, you can download our virtual Siddur, and it will give you all of the prayers and readings and everything you need this night. But whether you've got the book, a screen in front of you, or just want to pray along with the songs and prayers in your heart, all are wonderful, all are absolutely welcome. We begin our work in the book on what is page 8 in the book with a reading. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics, and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life. We now turn back in the book to page 2 for the lighting of our Shabbat candles. And I will, as I often do, make my way slowly over to see if anyone joins me to light these candles.
Mona! Sorry that I'm late.
It's okay. Bust on through like the Kool-Aid man. That's good. Ready? Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We continue our Kabbalat Shabbat service on page 10 with Hine Ma Tov.
Hine ma tov u'madayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'madayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'madayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'madayim, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד.
And we continue on the very next page with Dodi Lee.
Dodi Lee is one of the great love songs of our Megillot, of our extra biblical texts here. It is a love song that was taken out of the Song of Songs and brought here for Shabbat because it is very much the kind of feeling that we want to embody in Shabbat.
We continue welcoming the Sabbath bride on page 20 with Lecha Dodi. As is our custom, we sing verses 1 to 5 and 9. And when we reach the 9th and final verse, if you are able, we would ask that you rise and turn to welcome the Sabbath bride into whatever space you are in this evening.
There לקראת קלה, ידעי, 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 לשבת לקבלה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, ידעי, 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 לשבת לקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בעורף וביורי, אורי, אורי, שיר חברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, ידעי, 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 לשבת לקבלה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, ידעי, 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 לשבת לקבלה. בואי בשלום, עטרת עלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. טוב אמונה עם שגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, ידעי, 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 לשבת לקבלה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, ידעי, 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 לשבת לקבלה.
You may be seated. We turn now to page 26 for Chatzi Kaddish. Please join me. Yitkara v'yitkara shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yalma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei.
בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בגלה, בגלה, ובזמן קריב.
V'meru.
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לא נעלמיה יתברך.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudisha b'richu leila min kol birchata v'ashirata
תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן באמן.
v'meru.
Amen.
We turn to the Baruch Hu, page 28, and if you are able, please rise.
Baruch Hu et Adonai
We turn to page 31 and we read down all the way at the bottom of the page. I know that the tide is not an independent force, but merely the submission of the waters to the movement of the moon in its orbit. And in this orbit, in its turn, is subject to other orbits which are mightier far than it. And so the whole universe is held fast in the clinging grip of strong hands, the forces of earth and sun, planets and comets and galaxies, blindly erupting forces, ceaselessly stirring in ripples of silence to the very depth of black space. Baruch atah Adonai, Mariv Aravim.
Amen.
Ahavat Olam can be found on the next page.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadata, otanu limadata. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shofenu, u'kameinu nasiach b'chukacha, ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם עד, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, נגה יומם ולילה. מאהבתך אל תסיר, ועמנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל.
The Shema can be found on the next page.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Amen.
You may be seated. We continue together with the V'ahavta, page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol be'yodecha v'hayu הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובמלאכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם מאוד על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Adonai Elohechem Emet. We turn to page 38 and we read together in the English. All this we hold to be true and trustworthy for us. You alone are our God, and we are Israel, your people. You are our sovereign and Savior, who delivers us from oppressors' hands and saves us from tyrants' fists. You work wonders without number, marvels beyond count. You give us life and steady our footsteps. You performed miracles for us before Pharaoh, signs and wonders in the land of the Egyptians. You led your people Israel out from their midst to freedom for all time. When your children witnessed your dominance, they praised your name in gratitude, and they accepted your sovereignty. Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you together, lifting their voices joyously. Michamocha can be found on page 40.
וגלומי עד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
We turn now to page 43, and we read together at the top of the page, "Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, Porei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim." Yism'Zoom can be found on the next page.
Yism'Zoom b'malchutah, shomerei Shabbat. Yism'Zoom b'malchutah, shomerei Shabbat. Bekorei Oneg, bekorei Oneg. Yism'Zoom b'malchutah, shomerei Shabbat. Yism'Zoom b'malchutah, shomerei Shabbat. Mekadashei Shaviri, Kulam Yism'Zoom ve'yitzamnu metuvecha. Yism'Zoom b'malchutah, shomerei Shabbat. Yism'Zoom b'malchutah, shomerei Shabbat. Bekorei Oneg, Yism'Zoom b'malchutah, shomerei Shabbat. Yism'Zoom b'malchutah, shomerei Shabbat. Hashvi ratzito v'kidasho, chemdati yamli moto karata, zechel amase v'reshi. Yism'Zoom ומלכותך, שומרי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת. בקורי עונג, בקורי עונג, ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת.
We now turn to page 46 for the Amidah. If you are able, please rise. Adonai sifatayv tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, בחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחכה חיים בחסד, בחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מלחמוך בגבורות, ומינו מלך, מלך ממיט ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. We take these next few moments for silent prayer. Please have a seat when you feel ready. Oseh Shalom can be found on page 62.
Yes.
We now turn to Seder Kriyat HaTorah, our Torah service this evening. It begins on page 245. I thought you couldn't have too many tabs in a book, and then I realized I should stop saying that. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah, and let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. And we turn back to page 86 for our blessing for the study of Torah. We say, Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Now, on Monday night, on Simchat Torah, we read the very beginning of Parshat Bereshit. Actually, Alex Molinas read that for us. So I decided to read a different section. We are moving on to chapter 2, since we did chapter 1 earlier on in the week. And we are going to hear the moment that we are given what I believe it was Abraham Joshua Heschel who told us this was the greatest gift that God has given. More than the Jewish people have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jewish people. So this is the moment at which we are given Shabbat, Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Vayechulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzva'am. Vayechol Elohim bayom hashvi'i melachto asher asa. Vayishbot bayom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa. Vayavarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i vaykadesh oto. Kivo shavat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim la'asot.
At this time, we think of those in our community who need a little bit of healing, whether it is body or mind or spirit. At this time, we are thinking of Harav Aharon Ben Tova, Wendy Alderman, Lucille Alexander, Joan Brickman, Stanley Browdy, Neil Calder, Patrick Campbell, Megan Carney Cranmer, Laura Cohen, Vita Dworkin, Tali Engel, Camille Gertler, Stephen Gould, Marlene Harris, Harvey Higdon, Harav Miriam Bat Shifra V'Pinchas, Lori Pattison, Shirley Rutkovitz, Sarah Batchava, Marianne Schenker, Wen Song, Jessica Wadatz, Asher Zelech, Laura Jawad, everyone around us affected by the wildfires and everyone affected by the coronavirus, and of course, all of the names and all of the people that you have shared either in your hearts or have put their names in the comments. For all of them, we offer our song of healing, Misha Berach. It can be found on page 253 in the book. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBrecha Limotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu, Mekor habrecha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And we turn to page 257, and we read responsively, "When Torah entered the world, freedom entered it. The whole Torah exists only to establish peace.
Its highest teaching is love and kindness. What is hateful to you, do not do to any person."
That is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. Go and learn it. Those who study Torah are the true guardians of civilization.
Honoring one another, doing acts of kindness, and making peace. These are our highest duties. But the study of Torah is equal to them all because it leads to them all.
Let us learn in order to teach. Let us learn in order to do. This week, NASA's new telescope has been in the news. It is on its way as we speak to French Guiana, where it will be launched into space. And once it reaches its destination about 1 million miles from Earth, it will be unfurled and it will be the most powerful telescope we have ever built. It will be able to look back into the oldest, most distant corners of the universe, and it will allow us to study some of the first galaxies and stars created after the Big Bang over 13.5 billion years ago. It will allow us to look back to creation. We will be able to study how stars are born, how galaxies come to be, and maybe study the atmospheres of planets outside our solar system, looking for conditions that could support life. We can use this amazing piece of technology to look back and study the story of our creation. This week, as Jews, we also look back at our story of creation in reading the Torah. Bereshit bara Elohim, when God began to create the heaven and the earth being unformed and void. Well, it sure sounds to me a lot like the Big Bang. But the Torah is not a science textbook. Reading it too literally has hampered scientific progress for centuries. It locks us into a particular idea of a narrative that we don't need to hold in that way. We don't need to read the Torah to love, accept, or understand science. But we need to read the Torah to understand ourselves. The Torah is a different story. It is a story of human drama, of emotions and experiences, and it offers us the story of how we came to be. Not in the way of atoms and molecules, but the way of morality and ethics, the way that our people are, how our people were formed. And it begins with the stories of creation. God creates light, and it is good. Rabbi Karen Kadar says, this is our origin story. Assumptions, beliefs, values, guiding principles are formed by the way we tell our story. The cosmos is birthed with light and with goodness. Light is good. Knowledge, truth, understanding, these were all created in that singular moment, and all are good. Our creation story begins with the creation of light to teach us that light is at the beginning of all things, of all good things. Moral and spiritual awakenings alike begin with light when we begin to see. V'harer einenu b'toratecha, enlighten our eyes with Torah, we ask. And from there, we ask God to focus our minds, unite our hearts in love and reverence. Torah is light. We learn from the Proverbs that a mitzvah is a candle and the Torah is light. Rabbi Lauren Eichler-Berken reminds us that we often do not see light. What we see is the object that it illuminates. And so the mitzvot that we are commanded to do are the way that we see light reflected. Or perhaps, she says, we see the light in one another doing acts of loving kindness. We need light. Not only does light drive us towards goodness and illuminate our path to God's commandments, it urges us to explore, to live. We cannot have insight without sight, and this too requires light. So is it any wonder that we thirst for knowledge, for that light of learning? That we send probes and telescopes to the outer reaches of our galaxy in order to learn more, to understand. In 1977, when we sent the Voyager probes, it was both a means to discover and a means to extend goodwill in the universe, to offer the peak of our knowledge and to maybe someday learn from others in return. We sent along inside those spaceships beautiful sounds of music and nature and dozens of greetings of friendship and peace in over 50 different languages. It was our story that we sent out in its best and most helpful telling. And telling the story of humanity was, to some, a sacred undertaking. Our light sent millions of miles into the universe. It is good. Where do we come from? We are dust. Looking at our origins, we are literally from dust. Afar min ha'adama. This is meant to humble us, to remind us of where we came from, in hopes of keeping us reverent and respectful of one another. We all come from the same dust, and yet to the scientists, it is also true. When we look back into the cosmos, we understand that we are stardust. Astronomer Bart Bach said that when we study the universe, we study it for the same reason that we write operas or poetry, because it is what distinguishes us as human. Astronomy is worthwhile in the way that art is worthwhile. And so when we look back at the origins of the universe, whether through a telescope or through the chapters of Genesis, we see where we came from. And yet the lights are long gone. The stars in the sky are not as they are today, but instead light that is millions and billions of years old. And the stories of the Torah are not new, but ancient as well, perhaps even timeless. But in either light, we see where we came from, how we were made, and who we are. And if we use that light today, we can illuminate our future as well. Shabbat Shalom. We now turn to the bottom of 282 for Aleinu. If you are able, please rise. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונה, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 285. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. When may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Page 287. V'namar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu
Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad, U'shemo echad.
You may be seated. We think now of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. This time we recall Jacob Bayer, Joan Nutkin, Terry Gregory, Grayson Corbett, Joe Johns, Sherwin Sider, Arthur Ashkin, Jack Robinson, Betty Williams, Pamela Walker, Barb McBrady, Mary Jane Ludwig, Inga Kaplan, Elizabeth Ruth Rassler, James Cross, Peter A. Alsberg, PhD, Eileen Jenkins, Selma Four, Steve Strauss, Andrew Verratti, Donna Matlis, Charlie Perlman, Rabbi Michael Cook, Sharon Perlman, Mildred Millie Small, Alan Dabrow, William Leibovic, Jim Ballantyne, Eli Kane, David Stucker. In this Shabbat, we commemorate the yahrzeits of Ignaz Grunwald, David Harrison, Kathy Gordon Feiertag, Elizabeth Matlis, Joseph Boyarsky, Jean Golden Eisenstadt, Sidney Levy, Leona Burns, Arthur Goldberg, Karl Javinsky, Albert C. Merkin, Ellen Minnick, Albert Neuberger, Janice C. Pendergraft, and Rabbi Regina Jonas. Those names and the ones that you have offered in your hearts or in the comments, Kaddish Yatom, can be found on page 294. If it is your custom, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
B'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael b'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'omei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yithalal Shemei dekudesha b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata ta'amiran v'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all who mourn, to which we say, Amen. You may be seated. I would like to give you a few announcements this evening. The first is a thank you to Naomi for running our tech. We could not do it without you. After services this evening, if you give us a few moments, we will then transition into our Yism'Zoom online Oneg. It is via Zoom. We are happy to continue these good feelings of Shabbat and say hello to everyone. We thank you to Chris and Laura for being our hosts again this evening. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., also via Zoom, but a different link, we have Torah study. We are at Genesis 27:18. What's going on at this point? Are we still in Isaac, or are we? All sorts of good stuff with Isaac, who I think has got more going on than people give him credit for. Tune into Nathan Gordon's Devar Torah at his bar mitzvah. He's got some things to say. We hope you will join us for that. There is no prior experience necessary. It's really, though, it is a wonderful way to learn about our texts and our traditions, and also to just be able to interact with some of the folks in our community, both here in town and some who are far and wide. So we hope that you will tune in for that. There is no Sinai school this weekend because they are on break, but since you're not going to Sinai school, we could absolutely use your help in taking down the sukkah. We had a tremendous team come and help put it up, and we also need volunteers to help come take it down. We also need people to help put away the decorations, preferably in an organized and careful fashion. So next year, Rabbi Sarah has less untangling to do, and we can just put things up and get to Lashaving Basuka more quickly. So that is at 9 a.m. Please come and help out if you can. Please wear a mask so we can be as safe as possible. And at 10 a.m. that same morning, we have Sacred Sinai Belonging and Inclusion Program. It is via Zoom. There's information on the website about it. It is a fantastic program, and I urge you to check that out. Just a couple other things coming up. This Wednesday at 7 p.m., the book club is meeting via Zoom. And Rabbi Sarah and I are going to be on vacation this week. We definitely need it. So we are trying our darndest to be away and out and actually taking some time off. So if it is something that is of interest to us, but not essential, please hang on to it. If you absolutely need something, call the office, and Mike will be able to either get you to someone who can help, or if absolutely necessary, can reach out and knows where to find us for that. But hopefully everything will be okay. And when we come back in a little over a week, we will be a little bit rested and refreshed and ready to hit the ground running with all the things we've got going on post vacation and in the coming months, including the resumption of Sinai School and Jews on the Small Screen. It's a little class I'm teaching about the history of Jews and TV and all that good stuff. No big deal. So we've got all those things going on. We have a Torah for Tots coming up in a few weeks as well. So if that is your demographic, please make arrangements to join in on that. And so, without further ado, we will get to our closing song this evening, which
can be found on page 330. Since we were given Shabbat just today, I figured we would do a little bit of celebrating with an old Baghdadi melody for Ki Yishmer Shabbat. As I observe Shabbat, God watches over me, and it's a sign forever between God and myself. Ki Yishmer Shabbat. Ki Yishmer Shabbat El Yishmereini. Ki Yishmer Shabbat El Yishmereini. Oti Shabbat El Yishmereini. Ki Yishmer Shabbat El Yishmereini. Oti leomehan veno veni. Oti leomehan veno veni.
And before we let you go, if you have not already done so, grab a glass of some sort of peri hagafen, some sort of fruit of the vine. And we say the blessing together on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza b'anu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava u'ratzon hinchilanu,
זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקרא הקודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.